This is 90s Man, and welcome to my urban news channel. Today, I'm going to talk about a hot topic that we've been talking about for a few years, actually longer than a few years, but it's been recently back on the news, and that's reparations. Um, I don't know if any of you know, but in California, they actually have a panel or a task force that has gotten together to discuss, and that actually came up with some payments, and it looks like it's actually going to go through. So what I'm gonna do is put up a few stories to kind of let you kind of go through the talking points and see, give you my opinions on it, and see kind of what you guys are thinking. So let me share my screen real quick and get to my first story. One of the things that I kind of really want to talk about is uh, other groups in the U.S. who have actually received reparations. So that's the one thing people don't know. They think we as African Americans are asking for something that's out of the ordinary when this is a pretty regular occurrence. Now, the story is actually from Vox, Fair Use, and they're talking about six times victims have received reparations. And on this particular story, only four uh, cases are from the U.S. Now, this article is pretty old, from 2014, but doesn't matter because it's still going to do what we needed to do and just tell us the history. All I want to do is kind of discuss the history of reparations and just inform some people who don't know that this is actually a regular thing that has happened in history. In that picture, you see, it looks like Ronald Reagan and a bunch of other people I don't know, a bunch of Asian people actually. So I'm assuming that's referring to the Asian internment camps when they got reparations. So that's an important picture you guys looking at. So it's showing you a historic moment with people actually getting signed reparations in the U.S. That was 1988. You guys can look up the story, not particularly just on Vox, but just Google the different times that the U.S. have actually given people reparations. Okay, so let's go over the story a bit. Okay, deeply researched and beautiful written case for reparations to African Americans for slavery and Jim Crow has ignited a long, dominant conversation about what exactly the U.S. government owes to a population it abused for centuries. Now, again, this this article is actually from 2014, so and, and we're talking about it probably extensively the last 2 years, even back then, even before then. I'm sure in 1988, when he was signing that bill for Asians, that we were talking about it then. It should be something that's remembered by all of us. I don't understand how a story like that has been forgotten. Okay, the first story, which I would think most people probably knows about, is Jewish Holocaust survivors actually received money. Right. So let me read this for you. The closest analog to reparations for slavery and Jim Crow is probably the reparations that West Germany agreed to pay after the Holocaust. A major component was the $7 billion to 2014 dollars West Germany agreed to give to then young state of Israel. Look how much money that is. Coates goes into the Israeli debate around the reparations in some detail. Menachem began the leader of Israel's conservative opposition and later its first right of center prime minister opposed the deal on the grounds that it appeared to give Germany uh, to forgive Germany in exchange for money. Eh, but the deal eventually went through, and the consequences for Israel's well-being were astounding. Here's the quotes. By the end of 1961, these reparation vessels constituted two-thirds of the Israeli merchant fleet, writes the Israeli historian Tom Sigoff in his book The Seventh Million. From 1953 to 1963, the reparations money funded about a third of the total investment in Israel's electrical systems, which tripled its capacity, nearly half the total investment in the railways. So that goes to show you a group that got some money and actually did some good with it and how it helped build up Israel a bit. This is why it's important to get money if you've been abused and done wrong. We aren't asking for anything any other group hasn't asked for before, ladies and gentlemen. Never feel guilty about getting what's owed to you and me asking it done right now. Here's a case I didn't even know about. They're talking about apartheid in South Africa. One of the duties of South Africa's post-apartheid Truth and Reconciliation Commission, besides investigating human rights abuses committed by the apartheid government, was recommending reparations and other policies to redress the abuses and the aid victims of the former regime. The commission recommended about 360 million in reparations to be distributed in 6 annual payments to victims identified by the commission. But in 2003, President Thabo Mbeki announced in 2003 it would authorize only 85 billion. Wait, hold on, let's go. I go from 360 million and then it says only 85 billion. That's more money to be given in one-time payments of 3,900 above the average annual salary at the country at that time. The recipients numbered 16,000 as of 2012, a tiny fraction of the actual number of people victimized by the regime. Now, look, that sounds like a small number, but they actually said 3,900 is above the average annual salary in the country. So that's a lot of money. You got to put it in perspective. You can't look at it the same way as you would look at as an American receiving 3,900. But that's in South Africa. If anybody knows anything about apartheid, you know Nelson Mandela was actually the first black president over there after apartheid ended. But I never knew that black people over there received any money. So that's interesting. Now, this is the case I did know about, the Japanese and their internment, right? People don't know, after the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor and we dropped the atomic bombs on them, after the war, the U.S. government actually made Japan disband their military, right? But during the war, Japanese people were actually put in internment camps. A lot of people don't know that. So after it was over, they actually asked for reparations and got it. Now think about that for a second, folks. We've been basically marginalized in this country for 400 years. We ask for money and everybody think it's tell us this, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Nonsense. But everybody else can get money. Now look at it. Let me read the actual story to you guys. The forced internment of 120,000 Japanese American in camps during World War II resulted in about 3.1 billion in property loss, 6.4 billion in income loss. In 2014, if account for the possibility that the money might have been invested in gotten above inflation returns, the economic losses are even larger. Congress made 2 attempts at the reparation: the Japanese American Claims of 1948 and the Civil Liberties Act of 1988. Between 1948 and 1965, the former authorized payments totaling of 38 million, which comes to somewhere between 286 to 374 million in 2014 dollars. Okay, so which didn't come close to matching the economic loss. It doesn't matter. They got something. They haven't given us anything. I forgot what this was called. Something happened after the Freedmen's Bureau. If you guys haven't heard of that, look up the Freedmen's Bureau and look what they did to that money and look what how much more money they stole from us. The later offered survivors $20K each in reparations. That's a paltry sum each in reparations. By 1998, 80,000 survivors had collected their share, a total payout of 1.6 billion, between 2.3 billion and 3.2 in today's money. There is no accounting by which either measure adequately repaid internees for the economic losses, let alone compensated for pain and suffering. We haven't got anything for any economic loss or pain and suffering. Forced sterilization. See, this is another story I never heard of. Most American states practice one another form of eugenics during the 20th century. Now, I've heard of eugenics, obviously. The targets was largely, but by no means entirely, mentally or developmentally disabled. Poor black women on welfare were especially likely to be victimized by this manner. The Supreme Court gave the practice a green light in 1927's Buck versus Bill, which eventually 33 states adopted, forcibly sterilizing about 60,000 people total through the 70s. Let me get to the money part and see how much they got. But that's what I want us to focus on: is people who actually receive money because they asked for reparations and actually gotten it, right? Okay, so the state sterilized about 7,600 people, most of whom no longer living, but later, but last year passed a 10 million reparations program that would should give more than 177 living victims somewhere in the range of 50K each. Now, we're not talking about huge numbers, obviously, but the point is they actually asked for it, received it, but they try to tell you and I that we shouldn't even ask for it. It's something that we shouldn't even be broaching. Like they talk to us as if it's never happened, as if no one has ever received money because of reparations. Now, this is a story near and dear to a lot of black people's hearts, especially down south. And a lot of us have heard of it, especially of a certain age. But the Tuskegee Experiment. You remember that about 399 black men were given syphilis and left untreated, right? They were given placebos like water pills and told them that it would treat the syphilis, but what they were doing was deliberately letting black men die and just watch how syphilis affected them, right? They did it for years, and it had long-lasting effects. And, okay, let me see. The study, regression disease between 1932 and 1972, 40-year program, huh? The government reached a 10 million out-of-court settlement with the victims of the families in 1974, which included both monetary reparations. In 2014, 178,000 for men in the study who had syphilis, 72K for heirs, and 77,000 for those in control group of 24,000 of the heirs, and 24,000, I'm sorry, for heirs of those in the control group, right? So that's another case. Rosewood. I know many of you probably seen the movie Rosewood. This is another case that I didn't even know that some of these people got reparations. But in Rosewood, if you've seen the movie, it's based in Florida. This is a small black town. Incident occurred, of course, just like Tulsa, where they said either someone got raped by a black man, usually a made-up story, and white people went on a rampage and basically destroyed a all black town, right? Basically wiped out that population there. Okay, so that was, let me see how much money they got. So the state of Florida agreed to pay reparations package worth around 3.36 million in 2014. And 2014 seemed to be the year that they really was paying out for these things, of which 2.4 million today would set aside to compensate the 11 or so remaining survivors. So only 11 people were survived at the time of the incident, which obviously happened a long time ago, 1923, the incident. $800,000 to compensate those who were forced to flee the town, and $160,000 would go to college scholarships primarily aimed at the seniors. Now, this is the point I want to bring up. This is something else they do with us, is they offer us, they want to offer us college benefits. Notice it's not money. Go to college, and what the people who have been in college, I need you guys to leave some comments in the comment section. Going to college isn't a guarantee of success or that you're going to get a job, especially if you're a black person. They underpay you even with the degree you have. So what is going to college, even if it's free? I'm not saying that's a bad thing, totally, by the way. But the bigger point is we want money. We want to be compensated for what our ancestors went through. Don't make anybody make you feel guilty about this, right? And we have a request. So that's the last incident, but it's still something I want you guys to realize now. What I'm gonna do now is share with you guys, excuse me, a story that's just from the last couple of days, right? It's about the California opening a task force for reparations for direct descendants of enslaved people only. Now, this task force originally were trying to get every black person reparations in California, anybody with black ancestry, which I'm against. And if you know anything about Tariq Nasheed, he always preaches against this, and I'm on board. In the U.S., it should be about black Americans or FBL, foundational black Americans receiving some money. And you know why? Because we know for a fact these groups come over here, and what do? They make sure to stay away from us. They look down on us, even though we are a big reason why they're here. The civil rights movement. You really think the average Caucasian want these different African groups or Jamaicans come in here? And if you think that's not an accurate assessment, look at what they do to Haitians. You remember? I don't know if people remember about over 10 years ago was a little Cuban boy on a boat who had to come over by himself, right? And it was a big story, and the police had to go pull him out of his house from his dad with him. They made a big deal about this little boy, right? But at the same time, they always make sure that not too many Haitians can come have access to the U.S. or get here, right? And we saw the recent story with Haitians trying to come through Mexico, and they stopped it and how they been being treated. You saw the pictures. You saw the guys on horseback. If you guys didn't see it, I can show you right now. If this story doesn't sound familiar, let me Google it for you right now. Haitian Mexico horseback. Okay, let me show you. I just want to show you guys the picture, not really getting into the whole story. Look. You see this? This is what they did to Haitians who were in Mexico trying to get over, start a better life for themselves, no different than any other. And you know what? These Haitians were actually working in Mexico. But look at the Texas Ranger on the horse, and look how they're treating the Haitians. Look, this is what they do. So some of these type of people come over to the U.S. and they try to make African Americans enemies. But this is what white people think about them. Look, you see the picture. You think someone black is gonna be with a whip and trying to tell them to turn back around and treating them inhumane? No, but they come over here and they act like we're their enemy. So back to my original point is why I feel like I don't really care about these other groups getting money per se. I'm more so worried about what we as African Americans should be fighting for and getting, right? I don't know. The screen share stopped, but I need to show you some more. Task force. Okay, let's get back to the California story, right? So as it reads, let me read a little bit of the story just to catch you guys up who may not understand or have heard of the story. Okay, the 9-member task force voted 5-4 in favor of defining eligibility for reparations based on lineage. Look, this is what I'm here to talk about. It should be for lineage. This is how much I believe this. If they want every black person to have it, I would rather not get anything. I don't care if it's $1 million a piece. I would rather not have any of the money than any other black group gets it. Because why should they benefit from us? Something we're fighting for once again. We fight for them to come over here. They come over here, get educated, and then want to align with whites against us. I don't care if you want to, you rather be around whites or any other group, but you don't have to vilify us, because we're not your enemy. You'll find out the hard way. You usually do. Look, I'm from Dallas, Texas, and many of you heard about the case in the news with Botham Jean, the guy who was just sitting in his apartment eating ice cream, and a white police officer, off-duty officer, killed him, right? Killed him. And he was an immigrant. It doesn't matter. You were a black person. Well, you know what she killed him? Because she saw a black person. She was drunk, went to the wrong apartment, saw a black guy, and then she's a police officer. She could have just said, put your hands up, tried to, but she made sure to kill him. Why? Because she was scared. So, again, reparations based on lineage, determined by, look, the vote was even close, 5-4, by an individual being an African-American descendant of shadow enslaved person or the descendant of a free black person living in the U.S. prior to the end of the 17th century, the motion read. Now, this article is from a website called Call Matters Fair Use. And if you guys want to check out any of these stories, I want you to go to my to the describe tab. Let me see what's this called. Let me see. If you guys would go to the details tab on my YouTube page, or I'm having a brain fart. I don't know what it's called, but it's a tab where you can see the description. I'm sorry. Go to my description page on my YouTube page, and it'll have a link to both of these articles. If you guys are interested in reading the articles yourselves, click on the link, and then you have the article there for you both can read through the whole articles on your own. Okay, so I'm gonna wrap it up, you guys. So this was kind of what I wanted to talk about today, just reparations and about it being for Black Americans in general. This is what we should focus on. We should focus on us, not every other group, not hand holding or whatever fairy tale they try to get liberals try to give you about who we should align with, and we don't need to align with anyone. Everybody else just uses us, throws us away like a stepchild. Let's stop being stepchildren, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, I'm about to end the thread. I need you guys to like and subscribe on my urban channel. I talk about urban news or just issues in general that affect the Black community. I talk about some celeb news, also just Black news in general. You guys have a good day, and I hope you enjoyed your time here.